Hi everyone, it's Katrina. What is your worst fear? Heights? Spiders? Terrifying monsters that just might be real? Today's video is packed full of the most frightening cryptids and creepy creatures in the world, some of them even caught on camera. So let's check them out. The clearest picture ever of Bigfoot. This image of Bigfoot is causing a stir online. The image appears to show a large, hairy creature standing by a river. Let's take a closer look. Is it the elusive Bigfoot or something else? The picture was uploaded in a video by a man in Virginia named Randy O'Neill, who said that his father snapped the photograph while out with a friend in late June 2024, so pretty recently. But this wasn't the first time. Randy says that he and his father have encountered Bigfoot before, 25 years before this new shocking picture was taken. Randy was 15 years old. It was around 9 o'clock in the evening when Randy, his father, and a family friend had just settled down for the night by the fire. They were camping in a remote part of Virginia, about 5 miles from civilization, off the edge of an intercoastal waterway. They all had the sense that they were being watched. Have you ever had that feeling? Randy said he kept seeing red eyes looking back at him from the bushes. His dad handed him a shotgun and said, "If you see something scary, shoot it." So he did. That was when a blood-curdling scream filled the silent night air. They were all shocked as whatever had been shot tore off through the woods like a rampaging bull. When it hit the river, it sounded as if a car had been dropped into the water. The next morning, they investigated the trail that the creature had taken through the woods to the water. It looked as if heavy machinery had plowed away the bushes. For the next 25 years, the family wondered about what they had really encountered on that night. Then on June 28, 2024, Randy's dad was fishing near that same location where they originally saw the strange creature in the forest when his dad snapped this photograph. It looks like Bigfoot standing by the edge of the river. It's not crystal clear, but it's not that blurry either. Take a good hard look and let me know in the comments if you think this is really Bigfoot or not. I want to know your thoughts. The vampire demon of Africa. They call it the Popo Bawa, a creature of paranormal mystery that defies explanation. It is part vampire, part cyclops, part ghost, and all demon. It's a cryptid that has terrorized the people of Zanzibar for generations, leaving a trail of fear and disbelief in its wake. Sightings of the creature rapidly spread to other islands, including some along the coast of Tanzania. People were physically attacked by this creature in the 1980s, 90s, and early 2000s. The demonic entity has become such a menace that no one is entirely sure of its origin. Its history is all mixed up in folk legend and rumor. One popular theory is that in the 1970s, a sheik released a vengeful genie to wreak havoc on his neighbors, but the sheik lost control of the spirit. The genie then took on the characteristics of a demon and escaped, bent on terrorizing as many people as it could. Many believe that Popo Bawa is a shapeshifter and that during the day it takes on the form of a human man. Then at night, the creature shifts into a demon vampire with gigantic bat wings and one huge eye in the middle of its forehead. It also has horns, just in case it wasn't already scary enough. In Swahili, its name translates to mean batwing. The attacks on villagers in Pemba Island are poorly documented. Those who claim to be victims of the monster often come from the poorest parts of the island, where the authorities don't put much stake into the things they say, especially not when it comes to demonic attacks. Its victims say that before they were assaulted by the Popo Bawa, they heard the scraping of claws on the roof, and a rancid smell filled their nose. Then the creature was attacking them. Hospitals in Zanzibar have supposedly treated people after being attacked by an unknown thing in the middle of the night, left with broken ribs and dark black bruises. Certain villages were targeted so effectively by the monster that they took to superstition to stay safe. Men stayed awake outside guarding their homes, smeared with pig's fat to ward off the evil entity. One local shaman claimed the Popo Bawa is a demon that was created by witches to torment men. It's been compared to the legend of the succubus, the notorious female spirit who seduces her victims. It's also been compared to the incubus, a male spirit that attacks its unsuspecting victims while they sleep at night. Succubi and incubi were mostly recorded during medieval times, but that doesn't mean that they are gone. There could still be evil spirits out there tormenting people in the dead of night. You could be next. The Irish Priest and the Sea Monster. On August 22nd in the year 565 AD, an Irish priest saw something strange in a Scottish lake. The creature that he witnessed was kind of like a dinosaur. It had long green flippers, a serpentine neck, and a plump body. It looked exactly like a plesiosaur, an ancient marine reptile from the prehistoric days. This was the first known sighting of the Loch Ness Monster in history, more than 1,450 years ago. The Irish priest was none other than Saint Columba, the missionary celebrated for bringing Christianity to Scotland. Columba was a diplomat, scholar, and a poet. But more than anything, he was an abbot who founded churches and monasteries across the Scottish lands. One day, while Columba was out and about, he found himself standing on the bank of the River Ness, which flows out of Loch Ness in the north. He was thinking about how he would get to the other side. When he came across a group of Picts. Keep in mind this was before the Vikings. Scotland was still primarily Pictish. The Picts, whom the Christian missionaries viewed as heathens and barbarians, were burying one of their comrades. They had all just been attacked by a water beast while swimming in the river. Christian tradition holds that Columba laid his staff down on the chest of the dead man and he sprang to life. It was a miracle. With their friend saved, one of the Picts decided he would jump into the river and try to fetch their small boat from the other side. They had moored it on the opposite shore and got stranded when the monster attacked. The Pict jumped into the water, which of course drew the attention of the monster. The beast charged through the water at the man, and his friends on the shore yelled out in fear. But not Columba. He walked casually to the edge of the water, and as the monster roared, said, "You will go no further." The monster heeded the saint's words and fled the scene. It went back down to the depths and swam into Loch Ness. In typical Christian fashion, the Picts converted on the spot and were baptized in the waters of the River Ness. There isn't any more mention of the monster in this fable, but it does appear to be the first record of the Loch Ness Monster ever. Even if some parts of the story are exaggerated, it seems like Saint Columba had a confrontation with the Loch Ness Monster 15 centuries ago. And now for a quick break, because it's shout-out time. I want to give a big thank you to Zyphon and Kristen Mary for supporting this channel. Thanks so much! Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos like this. The Fresno Nightcrawler. The Fresno Nightcrawler is a mysterious cryptid shaped like a pair of pants. It's one of the stranger legendary creatures to make its way into the media lately. It's some sort of bipedal entity with extremely thin legs, not much of a body structure, and a tiny head. Its silhouette is like a pair of pants dangling from a bowling ball. The Fresno Nightcrawler moves like a ghost, flowing smoothly across the ground. It's only ever been captured in grainy video footage, like a phantom. But just what in the world is this thing? The Pants Ghost was first spotted in Fresno, California in 2007 by a resident who would identify themselves only as Jose. It was a little after midnight on November 5th when Jose was awoken by his barking dog. It was unusual for his dog to go that crazy in the middle of the night. Fearing the worst, Jose checked the surveillance footage of his home. On the screen was something impossible. Jose saw two weird creatures strutting across his front lawn like long-legged ghosts. He shared the footage of his bizarre nighttime visitors with the people of Fresno. The footage caught the attention of paranormal investigator Victor Camacho. Victor was so convinced by the footage that at a UFO conference in 2008, he shared the original surveillance tape with the world. It gained widespread attention, and debate rippled through the paranormal community. Everyone was trying to figure out if the Fresno Nightcrawlers were aliens, a glitch in the Matrix, a hoax, or something supernatural. Even though Victor continued looking into the Fresno Nightcrawler, it started to lose popularity with the public, right up until 2011, when somebody spotted it in Yosemite National Park. Then it was captured on camera again in Poland in 2017 and in Montana in 2020. There isn't any solid evidence that the creature truly exists, but people around the world keep seeing it. None of the footage is clear, but people still believe it exists. In Fresno, the Nightcrawler has become something of a local celebrity. If you think you've seen the Fresno Nightcrawler, tell us all about it in the comments. El Duende. There is a boogeyman in Latin America known as El Duende. It's a terrifying creature that mothers scare their children with before they go to bed. Be quiet, the mother saying, behave yourself. Otherwise, El Duende will take you to his cave in the forest where nobody can hear you scream. Did your mom ever say anything like that to you? According to Latin American legends, El Duende is an elf or a goblin type of creature. It lives in forest caves and sometimes inside the bedroom walls of children. Whenever it gets the chance, it drags kids off into the darkness, never to be seen again. El Duende feels like it could be dismissed as a silly fairy tale, something told by mothers to make sure their children go to bed. But things aren't always that simple when it comes to cryptids. Many believe El Duende is a real creature, something made of flesh and blood just like the Chupacabra or Bigfoot. Ivan Sanderson was a researcher in the 1960s who collected accounts from people who had encounters of an unusual variety. Ivan was especially drawn to workers in the forestry sector who spent a lot of time in the woods. In 1961, Sanderson wrote about his meeting with a junior forestry officer. The officer had encountered two small creatures near the foot of the Maya Mountains. The creatures seen by the forestry officer looked kind of like spider monkeys. They were described as being about 4 feet tall, heavy in the shoulders, with really long arms and flat yellow faces. Maybe this fairy tale has its origins in simple monkeys, or maybe it goes deeper, all the way back to the Maya themselves. The ancient Maya believed in a deity whom they depicted as a small man wearing a big hat. The deity would roam the forests, but was shy and would hide rather than allow people to approach it. Oddly enough, there are tales of El Duende in Spain going back just as far. The Spanish El Duende was a mischievous leprechaun goblin creature who stood 3 feet tall and wore a big red hat. The ancient Iberians believed this magical creature lived either inside forest caves or in the walls of a child's room. And so we have come full circle. What has been haunting the bedrooms of children from ancient Iberia to modern Mexico? Are we dealing with real goblins here? The Voronezh aliens. In 1989, one of the most outrageous alien encounters took place in the Soviet Union. A group of children in Voronezh saw something so unbelievable, it changed them forever. As reported by the Russian news agency, a group of boys were playing soccer in a city park when they saw something glowing bright pink in the sky. From this pink glowing hue emerged a red ball around 10 feet across. The ball circled overhead, disappeared into thin air, and then reappeared a few minutes later. This is pretty standard UFO behavior. Strange orbs in the sky are known to appear, circle, vanish, reappear, but what happened next is not very standard at all. It's one of very few times that people have reported seeing the actual alien inside the UFO. The children claimed that the unidentified flying object landed and that a 3-eyed alien stepped out wearing bronze boots accompanied by a robot. Then the alien pointed its ray gun at one of the children, pulled the trigger, and the child momentarily disappeared. A few seconds later, the child reappeared. Then the alien and its robot got back into their ship and were gone. The whole episode only lasted a few seconds, but it was long enough and strange enough that the children freaked out. I know I may have lost you at the ray guns and the robot part, as that does sound a little far-fetched, but just listen to the rest of the story because it gets crazier. Even though the children were the only ones who physically witnessed the alien, they weren't the only ones who saw the UFO. Lieutenant Sergei Matveyev saw something strange flying in the sky and reported it to his superiors. The Interior Ministry was so concerned they radioed back that they would dispatch troops if the object reappeared. On October 9, 1989, about 2 weeks after the incident, the youths who saw the alien were interviewed by reporters. When accused of covering nonsense, the newspaper TASS insisted that the story was real and that the children had indeed seen something crazy. The Soviet Scientific Commission ordered an inquiry into the incident. In 1990, American scientist Paul Kurtz said members of a local research team near Moscow visited the site and used a form of ESP dowsing to confirm the brief presence of alien life. It was later determined that the whole area had an above-average presence of the radioactive isotope cesium, which was perhaps because of the unidentified flying object. This is one of the strangest stories of UFO encounters in the world. The monsters of Florida swamps. What would you do if you were coasting through the swamps of Florida when suddenly the shadow of a colossal monster appeared beneath your boat? There is a mega crocodile that might be a remnant of the age of the dinosaurs lurking around the Sunshine State. The giant crocodilian is known to Florida locals as the Mahamba. It's described as a crocodile of preposterous size, larger than any species known to scientists. People who have actually seen the creature say it reaches lengths of between 50 and 60 feet. If that's true, it makes the largest recorded saltwater crocodiles look like tadpoles. The Mahamba's massive and bulky body is supposedly covered in thick armor, and its jaws are filled with bone-crushing teeth. This monster is so aggressive that in 1907 it allegedly attacked a group of construction workers building a bridge over St. Johns River. The workers suddenly spotted a big crocodile in the water below them. They described it as the same size as the bridge they were working on. It was a titan of the swamps. Naturally, the workers ran away. They abandoned their equipment and rushed to shore. When they went back the next day, the creature was gone. They never saw it again, but the story stuck, spreading throughout the region. It turned out the construction workers weren't the only ones who had seen the behemoth of a crocodile. In the aftermath, more stories started to be made public. Some claimed that they saw something even bigger, placing the crocodile at 80 feet long. The most popular explanation is that those bridge workers in 1907 saw a remnant of a creature thought to be extinct. During the Cretaceous period, the Deinosuchus reigned supreme as one of the largest crocodilians ever to evolve. Paleontologists think it could have grown more than 40 feet. It would have been quite aggressive, just like the Mahamba. But it shouldn't be around anymore because it's supposedly been extinct for millions of years. One possibility is that when all other Deinosuchus went extinct, a small population held on in Florida. Florida could be home to actual dinosaurs. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. The Moth Man of Chicago. The Windy City has a new resident, and it's not afraid of heights. I'm sure you've heard about the Mothman before, but not like this. There is a Mothman in West Virginia, a terrifying entity that may have played a role in the Point Pleasant disaster of 1967. But there is also a horrifying Mothman who haunts the city streets of Chicago. The original Mothman was an omen of incoming disaster. Between 1966 and 1967, residents of Point Pleasant reported seeing something that they couldn't understand. There was a creature with burning red eyes and massive wings like a demon creeping among the small, quiet community. The sightings of the Mothman went up and up and up. People kept seeing the creature more and more until December 15, 1967. That morning, the very last sighting occurred, with witnesses seeing the Mothman perched on the top of the Silver Bridge like some sort of disgusting gargoyle. Then, the bridge collapsed, tragically killing 46 people. It was one of the worst bridge disasters in American history. The fates of those unfortunate victims have forever been tied to the mysterious monster that showed up in the months before. In 2011, the Mothman returned, this time to the Chicago area. People began reporting sightings of a strange humanoid monster flying through the city. Initially, there were only a couple of sightings. But just like in Point Pleasant, the sightings began to multiply. They increased until the summer of 2017, when they seemed to reach their peak. The creature seen in Chicago has glowing red eyes, just like the monster in West Virginia. The Chicago Mothman stands up to 10 feet tall, its wingspan just as wide. Some people have seen it peering through windows, dropping onto the hoods of cars, or just flying through the air like some sort of mutant Batman. Here's a photo courtesy of Phantoms and Monsters. It looks like a plane until you zoom in and realize it's the creep from Jeepers Creepers. And here are all the spots on Google Earth where there have been sightings. Look at them all. Listen to the testimony of eyewitness John Amitrano, who spoke openly with Vice. His encounter with the Mothman is too scary not to believe. It was a Friday night, and John was working security at a bar in Chicago called The Owl. When he looked up, he saw a plane in the sky, but the plane wasn't alone. There was something moving awkwardly underneath the plane, which John described as a pterodactyl. It didn't have any feathers or fur and was enormous. It almost looked like a man with pterodactyl wings, all sinewy and membranous. John was one of the 55 people who reported seeing the Mothman in 2017. The elusive Bigfoot of Australia. Now, we all know there are terrifying creatures down under. Besides all the spiders and snakes in Australia, they have their own Bigfoot called Yowie. Only, it's not exactly Bigfoot. A Yowie is a humongous ape-like creature covered in hair that people have been spotting in the woods for centuries. Just like Bigfoot, Australia's Yowie seems to be impervious to cameras, camcorders, and smartphones. Bigfoot and the Yowies are separated by thousands of miles and countless leagues of open ocean. Even though they seem similar since they are both huge and hairy, that's where Australians draw the line. Early European visitors to the continent saw the creature in the 19th century, but Aboriginal people have been speaking about it for ages. They call it the hairy man of the wood. The ancient Kuku-Yalanji tribe of northern Queensland say their ancestors existed alongside the Yowie in prehistory. The Kuku-Yalanji say there are two different types of Yowie. One of them can grow up to 10 feet tall, making it a very real giant. The other kind only grows to about 5 feet tall, making them far more similar to ordinary humans. Both species are described as having ape-like faces and thick orangish hair. Both species of the beast are known to be violent and smell awful. What may come as the biggest shock to you is that both species might be 100% real. Let's check out the most recent sighting that gained international attention. In 2021, 3 men came face to face with a Yowie on a dark street in Queensland. Seamus Fitzgerald, Sterling Bennett, and their associate who did not want to be named were working at a plantation at the time. It was late and the men were on their way back to the Jimna base camp. In front of them was a slouched figure standing underneath a streetlight like some villain from an old Victorian book. Jack the Ripper, maybe. At first, Fitzgerald said they thought it was a boar or some other sort of big animal. But when they got close enough, they realized it was definitely a Yowie. It clearly had the face of an ape, and its arms were extremely long. Fitzgerald said that he had never experienced anything strange or paranormal like this encounter before in his life. When he went to sleep that night, he couldn't drift off. He was overwhelmed by seeing something that he had previously not even believed in. The 3 friends hadn't gotten close enough to touch the Yowie, but the brief encounter was enough to convince all of them. Archaeologists have found Aboriginal cave art dating back thousands of years that depict the Yowie. There are cave pictures of tall, distinctly humanoid creatures covered in thick hair painted next to Aboriginal humans. Many believe this is a sign that the Yowie was a species of early hominid, one that disappeared into the Australian outback. But before it vanished, it lived alongside modern humans. This could be the same sort of situation we're dealing with in North America when it comes to Bigfoot. What are your thoughts on all of this? Let me know in the comments. The Pukwudgie. The Pukwudgie might be the real-life version of a gremlin. According to ancient North American legends, the strange creatures appear and disappear at will. They can shapeshift from their main form as tiny trolls into porcupines, and sometimes they lure people to their deaths. Tiny trolls might sound kind of cute, but trust me, they aren't. These bizarre creatures are sort of like fairies that were beaten with an ugly stick. They have big noses, big drooping ears, and their skin is a gross shade of corpse gray. They've been known to glow as well, but it's not a nice type of calming glow. It's more of a dull, ominous sort of glow, like a dim lantern in a graveyard at night. The only good news I have for people living in Delaware is that the Pukwudgie isn't very big. They grow to a maximum of 3 feet tall, making them fairly easy to kick. If you ever see one of these demonic gremlins charging at you, you might not want to kick it though. They are known to kidnap people, push children off cliffs, and lash out with knives and spears. I would suggest running away instead of kicking. This all sounds completely crazy, but the legends of the Pukwudgie go back to the origins of the Wampanoag. In the creation story of the indigenous people in Delaware, they speak of a giant named Maushop, who created most of the Cape Cod area. The giant was beloved by all the people, but not the Pukwudgie. They were jealous of the attention that the creator giant received, so they lashed out at the humans. The Pukwudgie started causing mischief across New England, just little stuff at first, pranks and annoyances, but then they started getting violent. They began kidnapping people and burning down entire villages. The Pukwudgie were driven into the deep forest where they supposedly still live to this day, still causing mayhem and mischief wherever they can. What you might find convincing is that there are tales of similar gremlin-sized people told by more than 14 Native American tribes. Just like the Yowie of Australia, it seems the Pukwudgie may have been a real race of tiny humans. Makes you wonder, how many cryptids really do exist? The ghoul of Costa Rica. A ghoul has been spotted on camera and it has people locking their doors. Nobody can tell if the thing seen in the video is a creature emerging from the depths of hell or a possessed human doing the backwards crab walk in the middle of the night. Either way, it's freaky. The video was recorded on home CCTV in Costa Rica and was uploaded to Reddit. In the footage, you can see the creature with its weird bent legs scuttling on all fours, while what appears to be a street dog barks desperately at the thing, whatever it might be. It's the middle of the night. Nobody else is around, and it's quite honestly haunting to see. Shortly into the video, just as the creature crawls towards the camera, a second dog shows up. The ghoul doesn't seem bothered at all by two vicious animals barking in its face. It makes me think that if this was a person, they would have quit the weird prank before they got bit. The original poster of the video said that there were two other people who filmed the same creature. In their local community, there were whispers that the ghoul was La Mona. La Mona, aka Mona Bruja, which means the monkey witch, is a fearsome character from Central American mythology. According to legend, La Mona was a witch who shed her skin using ancestral indigenous prayers. She transformed from a human woman into a monstrous monkey, a kind of hellish Bigfoot ghoul mashup. Do you think the video is real? Let me know in the comments below. The Curious Case of the Squonk. In 1910, William T. Cox released one of the most important field guides in American history, Fearsome Creatures of the Lumber Woods. In the text, William presented sketches and descriptions of the critters that lived in North America, including that of a creature so creepy it's almost cute. You're going to want one as a pet. In the preface of his book, William discussed the rapid loss of vast regions of forests in North America. Keep in mind this was more than 100 years ago. Forests, once boundless, were now completely destroyed. William wanted to preserve the stories of the animals that used to live in the woodland before it was all gone. One of those animals is known as the squonk, a creature that may still exist in the hemlock forests of Pennsylvania. The squonk is a being so rare and elusive that most people outside the state don't even know about it. Its story is kind of sad. Here's what I can tell you about the elusive beast. The squonk prefers to be alone. It's reclusive and only ventures out during the twilight hours at the end of the day. It also looks pitiful, but I'm not saying that in a mean way. Its skin is loose and doesn't quite fit its body. It's all frumpy and wrinkly. The creature is also covered in warts and moles. It's like an ill-fitting, wart-covered sock puppet put over a naked mole rat. There's also something wrong with its eyes, so they always leak. Whenever you see the squonk, it looks like it's weeping. It cries so much that hunters used to be able to follow the trails left by its tears. If that's not the saddest animal in the world, tell me in the comments what is. Unlike most cryptids, the description of the squonk has never changed. Those who have seen it have always described the exact same thing, which is important when dealing with something potentially mythical. Consistency suggests reality. The squonk could still be moping around deep in the hemlock forests. There have been random sightings throughout the last 100 years.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to stay tuned for extra content you might have missed.
Bigfoot in California. Jake Gardner was hiking in La Crescenta, California when he spotted a strange ape-like creature in the woods. He said he usually is on the lookout for deer or mountain lions, but not apes. He quickly pulled out his phone and started recording. While he was hiking in the woods, it wasn't very remote. He was just yards away from a YMCA, and the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, along with Los Angeles Animal Control, went to investigate the incident. Unfortunately, the video footage Jake captured is blurry and vague at best. There does appear to be a torso of something standing in the trees, and what looked like swinging limbs as the creature lumbered along. To make things even more confusing, Andrew Hugan, a spokesman for the Department of Fish and Wildlife, said he and his colleagues believed it very well could be some kind of ape. Was it Bigfoot? Wildlife officials warned that whatever it is, it probably won't be cuddly or friendly. It's probably not a mythical monster, but it could be an illegal exotic pet that someone released into the wild and is now surviving in the California wilderness, like a chimpanzee or something. There are actually several cases of pet chimps or apes that have escaped and are now roaming around California. Melon heads of Kirtland. Whispers that have circulated throughout northeastern Ohio since the 1970s claim that creatures with abnormally large, bald heads roam the region's forests, especially around Halloween. There are two main legends about where these appropriately nicknamed melon heads came from. Amy Capostacey of the Lake County Historical Society told the story of a mad scientist named Dr. Crow, who performed bizarre medical procedures on a group of orphans, causing their heads to swell disproportionately. The children grew tired of the abuse and burned Dr. Crow's house down with him inside. Because they had nowhere else to go, they went to live in the nearby woods, where they supposedly remain today. Another legend claims that the government was behind the head enlarging experiments and that they sent the kids to live with Dr. Crow in the city of Kirtland. They arrived at his house in the middle of the night, and Dr. Crow and his wife kindly took them in and cared for them. When the doctor died, the children burned his house down and went and lived in the woods. While the melon heads would be easy to write off as folklore, some people believe that they are really out there. Sightings happen mostly at night, and nobody has ever captured any solid evidence pointing to their existence. BGO Sandman. It seems as though there are countless different versions of Bigfoot-like creatures that have been spotted throughout the American Southwest. One of them is the BGO Sandman, also known as the BGO Sasquatch, that lives in San Diego County in Southern California. It's typically seen in the Anza-Borrego Desert State Park, which is located within the Colorado Desert. Stories of the humanoid-like primate have been passed around for centuries. When Spanish missionaries first arrived in the area in 1769, indigenous locals spoke of foul-smelling man-like beasts that lived along the Santa Ana River. They called them hairy devils and avoided them at all costs. European settlers and stagecoach travelers soon witnessed the creatures firsthand while passing through the area. These alleged sightings were sometimes accompanied by strange, unexplained deaths that left victims looking as if they had been attacked by a savage animal. The BGO Sasquatch is a particularly aggressive type of Bigfoot, according to some tales. In one sighting that happened in 1939, a man was camping alone when he was awakened by two of the beasts, who he later described as having silverish fur and demonic red eyes. They seemed afraid of his fire, but lurked around his campsite for some time before finally disappearing into the darkness. 30 years later, another camper named Harold Lancaster encountered a similar creature. He fired his pistol, causing it to jump 3 feet into the air and run away. Backyard Dinosaur. Florida is notorious for its bizarre and sometimes terrifying wildlife, but Palm Coast resident Christina Ryan's alleged sighting of a baby dinosaur in 2020 was a first. Her home surveillance camera captured footage of the creature crossing through her backyard early one morning. Ryan told the news that everyone she showed the video to agreed that the animal resembled a baby dinosaur, and that nobody could think of an animal that walks in a similar fashion. Some people speculated that it was a giant bird, but as Ryan pointed out, the creature in the video appeared to have 4 legs. Others suggested that it was a large lizard, perhaps a Komodo dragon, or simply someone's pet dog on a leash. One observant social media user pointed out that the animal appears to be wearing a harness with a leash dragging behind it. Ryan may have eventually realized that her imagination was getting a bit carried away when she admitted that perhaps she had watched Jurassic Park too many times. She also said, somewhat jokingly, that she was sticking to her theory about the creature being a baby dinosaur, because why not? German U-boat versus sea monster. A group of marine engineers were surveying an undersea power cable off the Scottish coast in 2016 when they discovered the remains of a World War I-era German submarine. The wreck was in surprisingly good shape for having sat for nearly a century on the sea floor, 340 feet beneath the waves. Experts determined that it's most likely one of 2 U-boats that were sunk by British patrol ships in the Irish Sea in 1918, as the conflict drew to a close. One of the submarines, known as UB-85, went down in April of that year. Thankfully, its crew members all survived. For years, a rumor claimed that a sea monster prevented UB-85 from going underwater, making it visible to the nearby British patrol ship HMS Coropsus. This far-fetched story appears to have no historical or factual backing. British naval intelligence interrogated the crew members, and not one of them mentioned the presence of a sea monster. Oddly, this is just one of several sensational tales about crazy things happening to German U-boats at sea, most of which have either been disproven or remain questionable. Mongolian Deathworm. According to legend, there is a fat, dark red worm with acidic saliva that lives in the southern Gobi Desert. Known as the Mongolian Deathworm, it's rumored to be around 3 feet long and is spiked on both ends. Locals call it the Olgoi Korkoi, which loosely translates to large intestine worm. The creature is rarely seen because it spends most of its time underground. In fact, it's only been spotted a handful of times and has never been photographed, but it's occasionally seen lying on the desert floor. It claims its victims in several ways, usually by spitting its corrosive venom at its target. When that fails, the Mongolian Deathworm resorts to Plan B, electrocuting its victim from a distance. It was famously mentioned in a 1926 publication by paleontologist Roy Chapman Andrews, who didn't believe the deathworm existed, but was still courteous enough to pass on the legendary tales about it that are known to circulate throughout Mongolia. There have been several attempts to confirm the creature's existence by going out and finding it, but nobody has ever been successful. Like any legendary creature, the deathworm has a following of die-hard believers who have concluded that there must be some truth to the claimed sightings. Others believe that the mythical monster is actually a snake or a legless lizard, which is entirely plausible, especially in the arid desert climate that it's known to live in. Do you think there really could be a giant deathworm lurking in the desert? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. The Jersey Devil. The Jersey Devil has become somewhat of a regional pop culture icon, appearing in countless books, films, and TV shows, despite having never been captured or photographed. Rumored to haunt the wooded Pine Barren of southern New Jersey, it's described as a flying monster with a kangaroo-like body, bat-like wings, a horse-like face with horns or antlers, and 2 legs with cloven hooves. Varying eyewitness accounts claim that it either has no tail or a lizard-like tail. It emits a blood-curdling screech from deep within the woods at night and kills small animals, including little dogs and chickens. Legends dating back to the 18th century claim that the Jersey Devil was the demonic 13th child of a witch named Mother Leeds. Born on a dark and stormy night, it quickly transitioned into its current terrifying form, killed the midwife on duty, and flew off into the forest. Over the past few centuries, many people claim to have encountered the Jersey Devil, but knowledge of its alleged existence didn't become widespread until the early 20th century, when a Philadelphia businessman painted a kangaroo green, attached wings to it, and showed it to the public in an attempt to pull off a poorly planned hoax. But afterward, there was a noticeable uptick in reported Jersey Devil sightings and encounters. In one of the more recent accounts from 1960, Residents of Mays Landing heard horrifying screams in the middle of the night. Police posted flyers reassuring the public that the creature isn't real. In the meantime, a circus owner encouraged the hysteria by offering a $100,000 reward to anyone who captured a Jersey Devil. As I'm sure you guessed, nobody did. Forest Ranger John Irwin was on patrol in 1993 when he crossed paths with a strange animal that was blocking the road. He described it as roughly 6 feet tall with horns and matted black fur, and claimed that they stared each other down for several minutes before it ran off into the woods. There have been many other alleged encounters with the Jersey Devil, with one claiming that it was 10 feet tall, yet no solid evidence of its existence has ever been found. Lake Ontario sea serpent. If you ask most experts, there is no way that a prehistoric monster could be lurking in the depths of Lake Ontario. Yet legends of such a creature have persisted for centuries, especially along the American side of the lake bordering upstate New York. The Oswego Palladium newspaper reported the first sighting of the Lake Ontario sea serpent in 1821, describing it as a snake-like creature measuring roughly 20 to 25 feet long. At first glance, the monster appeared motionless or asleep and resembled a burnt log. As the witnesses drove their boat towards the animal, it raised its head about 10 feet out of the water and then ferociously began thrashing about, splashing water everywhere. Using its tail, it produced columns of water 7 to 8 feet high. In 1833, the Oswego Palladium reported on another sighting by an eyewitness who claimed that the serpent was around 175 feet long. Like the previous report, the witnesses described seeing an apparently motionless being at first. Then the creature charged toward the vessel, narrowly missing it as it passed underneath the stern. In 1849, the British Whig reported the sighting of a miniature sea serpent, measuring roughly 12 feet long, with its body raised several feet out of the water. The creature allegedly fled past the vessel as the crew watched. Of course, not everyone believes these tales. In 2020, a New York State Department of Environmental Conservation official told the Palladium Times that any reports of abnormally large aquatic organisms resembling sea monsters are likely embellished accounts of large lake sturgeon. Well, there you go. I guess that's that. Or is it? Chupacabra. Residents in Riverside, California were shaken in 2017 when a large hairless creature with wrinkled pinkish skin and a rodent-like tail began appearing around homes at the foot of Box Springs Mountain. Kerry Shuker spotted the strange beast one morning after his cat ran into his house, terrified by something it had seen outside. He told the local newspaper, the Press Enterprise, that it was at least 2 feet or more longer than the biggest coyote you've ever seen. When Shuker ordered the creature to leave, it snarled and walked away. Local resident M.J. Bunt claimed that she saw this strange specimen eating fruit from a neighbor's tree. She described it as having deer-like ears and a long snout, and said that she initially mistook it for a sick coyote or a wolf. But she realized that it had too many different-looking parts to be any single animal that she knew of. Locals started to wonder if they were seeing the legendary Chupacabra, which was first sighted in Puerto Rico in 1995. Alleged sightings spread throughout Latin America and eventually into the U.S., where they continue to this day. After some cases were reported in Redlands, California, officials identified the creatures as coyotes with mange, an irritating skin condition that causes canines to scratch themselves to the point where they lose their hair. But not everyone believes that the explanation behind all the sightings is so cut and dry, even if they don't think it's an actual monster. Tom Brundage, who described the animal as resembling a chihuahua with a rat-like face and huge hind legs, told the news that he believed it was a canine marsupial hybrid that followed donkeys into the U.S. from Central America. Authorities, including the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, maintain their belief that people have been getting worked up about a mythical creature. Lake Erie Monster. The Lake Erie Monster, also known as the South Bay Bessie, was first spotted in 1793. Sightings have continued into modern times, with a noticeable uptick in reports over the last 40 or so years. Bessie is reportedly a grayish, snake-like creature measuring 30 to 40 feet long and a foot or more in diameter. The first sighting happened north of Sandusky, Ohio, when the captain of the sloop Felicity was out shooting ducks and saw what looked like a monster. There were 3 reported sightings in 1817, including one off the Toledo, Ohio coast. The witnesses, 2 French brothers by the name of Dussault, described the creature as a sturgeon with arms. They said that the 20 to 30-foot serpent was writhing in what they called death throes. In July of 1982, the crew of a ship traveling from Buffalo to Toledo noticed churning waters about a half-mile ahead of their vessel. When they got closer, they saw a so-called huge sea serpent that, in their words, was wrestling about in the waters as if fighting with an unseen foe. After the last reported sighting of Bessie in 1984, a marina owner named Thomas Solberg offered a $5,000 reward to anyone who captured the monster alive. While nobody has ever caught the beast, Bessie's legend lives on through the Cleveland Monsters hockey team, as well as a Great Lakes Brewing Company IPA named in her honor. Thanks for watching! Do you believe any of these monsters actually exist? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. See you soon! Bye!